I'd decided to have a night to myself. A free night where I could listen to music or jot some ideas down for some songs I was working on without the distraction of any friends being around. Settling down at my desk, I was in my own little world. Ideas were flowing and I'd cracked open my first beer in what I'd hoped would be a long evening. I wasn't wrong. It was about 10 p.m. when the phone rang, and before even speaking I heard hysterical laughter from the handset. I could tell it was Ben, a good friend at the time, and as he tried his best to splutter words from behind his laugh, I just about made out that he'd got something I'd like. He calmed down a little and managed to explain he'd got me a gift from Parkwood Springs, and that he'd be over shortly. A gift, I thought. There were no shops up there, just a dirt track for bikers and an overgrown ancient cemetery. I pondered for a while before heading back upstairs to continue writing. A little after 11 o'clock, Ben knocked at the back door, and after answering, I saw he'd left a blue plastic bag at the doorstep. He was disappearing down the narrow passageway that led to the house, but he looked back and, still laughing, shouted, "I've been digging!" And with that, he ran down the road. I kind of had an idea about what he'd brought me, but still slightly intrigued, I looked inside the bag. As I thought, it was full of old bones, and if they were from Parkwood Springs, then they must have been human. I wasn't sure if I should find it funny or be offended, but that was Ben. I had a quick look through the bag and saw what I thought was part of a pelvis, along with a few straight bones and some kind of ball and socket. Closing the bag and being a little superstitious, I took them to the shed and hid them behind an old cloth sack. I didn't really want those things in the house, and I went back inside and washed my hands. The night was hot and sticky as I tossed and turned, unable to sleep in the heat. A streetlight illuminated the room as I had opened the window in an effort to get some air into the place. I kicked the duvet off to cool down and stretched my arms out, but quickly recoiled as my hand brushed against something hard and cold, like tree bark. I paused for a second, numb, before slowly turning in heart-pounding shock to see a blackened corpse laid next to me. Without thought, I threw myself back off the bed and landed with a thud on the floor. Looking up over the bed once more, the thing was now sat up staring straight at me with black sockets where its eyes should have been. Dried, rotting flesh hung from its bones, and the remnants of some old white garments still clung to its wrinkled black body. I felt like it was staring straight into my soul. In panic, I jumped up and switched on the light to see it had gone, leaving nothing but its image forever etched on my mind. I gave up on sleep and spent the rest of the night on the couch with the lights on, watching reruns of old comedy shows in a vain attempt to forget what had happened. Morning came slowly the next day, and as I opened the curtains, I saw people and cars going about their daily business, none of them experiencing the same as I had the night before. I called Ben to ask about the bones, but never mentioned my visitor. "One of the stone enclosures had collapsed, so we just dug around a bit and found them," he offered as an explanation. "I thought of you," he said as he collapsed into a fit of laughter again. "Bastard," I said, and after a little more banter, ended the call. The curtains were still closed in the dining room as I passed through to get to the kitchen, and I noticed a sour smell in the air. It smelled like the rats in the loft that we used to poison after a few days being left up there before we'd collect the bodies for the bin. Nothing else was out of sorts until I opened the fridge and almost collapsed with the sight that greeted me. The corpse's head was staring straight back at me, crudely cut from its decaying body and laid on a plate. As I looked, it seemed to move. I looked a little closer to see what was left of its lips moving. "Back," it whispered, in a voice that sent shivers straight through me. "Back." I slammed the fridge door shut and, keeping my eyes on the fridge, slowly made my way backwards toward the back door, before unlocking it and creeping out. I noticed immediately the sweet smell of fresh air as the rotting smell disappeared, yet, as I entered the garden, black clouds glided over the sun, instantly darkening the sky. Seemingly out of nowhere, a heavy rain started falling, drenching me through as the whole sky blackened with storm clouds. Thunder clapped as I tried to open the door to get back in, only to find it locked. Shaking, I looked round towards the shed as the day suddenly turned to night, lit only by the flash of lightning as the rainfall got heavier. Another flash lit up the garden and I saw the corpse figure momentarily at the side of the shed, stood fully upright in rotting clarity. Its rasping voice once again wailed, "Back!" And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. Checking my car keys were in my pocket, I ran wet through up to the shed, straight past the creature, opened the door and grabbed the blue plastic bag the human remains were in, along with a shovel rested against the shed wall. I ran down the dark passageway and threw the bag in the boot as I set off, driving to Parkwood Springs Cemetery. The rain battered the car in the darkness as I tore along the roads up to the cemetery gates. Screeching to a halt, I got the bag and shovel and ran into the graveyard, wiping my face as the rain wet me through, while desperately searching for the damaged grave. It didn't take long to find, as it was the only grave there freshly disturbed, and I tried to dig into the waterlogged earth, only to find it too wet to dig. I dropped to my knees and started spooning the soggy mud out with my hands until I'd made a hole big enough to bury the bones in. Emptying the contents of the bag into the rapidly filling hole, I scooped mud back over the top before I sat back, panting and out of breath. Slowly, I walked back toward the car, muddy and drenched, and glanced up to see the black clouds dissipating. The drive back home was slow and dull, but as I climbed from the car, I felt the sun wash over me, sending a warm shiver down my spine. I showered, climbed into bed and slept solidly for 15 hours straight. I never did tell Ben about the incident. In fact, I've told nobody until now, but luckily, I never saw my visitor again.